Scent Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Matthew, and I'm back with another amazing Scent Spotlight. This week's featured creator is the artist duo Hackatao. Unlike previous spotlights, instead of talking directly with the creator themselves, I'm speaking with their own personal art curator and official spokesperson, Miss Eleonora Brizi, who has been working with the couple for a long time and is deeply connected and familiar with their work. Eleonora and I are able to talk about the origin story of Hackatao, their creative process, their very distinct yet constantly evolving style, how they're constantly experimenting with new tools as they arise, how they approach and think about artistic collaboration, as well as some really clarifying and dead simple thoughts on copyright and IP as it concerns physical and digital work. Our conversation about Hackatao is bookended by a couple questions that I had for Eleonora as an art curator. I start off the show by asking what has the traditional role of an art curator been, and then I finish up by asking her thoughts on the evolving nature of what being an art curator means in a time when digital art is taking over everything and crypto art as a movement is manifesting itself as something very special. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy the conversation that I had with Miss Eleonora Brizi about the artist duo Hackatao. Okay, and we're live. This is Matthew coming back with another Scent Spotlight. This week is new in a lot of ways, and it's very exciting. The artist spotlighted this week is Hackatao. And instead of actually speaking with the artist directly, I have the opportunity to speak with Miss Eleonora Brizi, who is an art curator and knows Hackatao and their work in and out. So I'm really excited to get a fresh, new, deep perspective on the artists that we're featuring on the Scent Spotlight. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Miss Eleonora Brizi to the show. Welcome, Eleonora.
Thank you. Hi, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Well, before we start talking about Hackatao, I think it would be really interesting for our audience at home to kind of delve into what a art curator is typically responsible for. So I guess based on your personal experience, I think it would be interesting to introduce what you have been doing professionally as an art curator.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question because there is a difference between what an art curator should do and what they actually do. So I'll be very happy to answer this. So my name is Eleonora. I am coming from the contemporary art world. I am specialized in contemporary Chinese art. So this is how I started my path. I lived in Beijing for 6 years. I was the artist assistant to Ai Weiwei. And this is how I entered the contemporary art world. And then I was the assistant for a French curator for many years. And what happened to me was that when I left China, and so I graduated in Chinese language and culture. So for me, it made a lot of sense to be there and deal with Chinese art. But then when I left China, I found myself being in this contemporary art world, and it was not about China and Chinese culture anymore. I moved to New York, and I was lost because I never liked the gallery system and the contemporary artwork system. And so I was looking for something fresh and new. And this is when the blockchain came to me and the crypto art came to me. And this is how I met Hackatao. So art curators, I am an art curator. I think that the role of an art curator is to guide artists through a path that should be done together with the artist. Art curators should be able to speak for the artist because many times, and this is why we decided with Hackatao to do this, like I am this authorized spokesman for them, their voice, because often artists, being artists, are not very able to express themselves in terms of words or like speaking, like if you're an artist and you make an art piece, it's very difficult that you are able to explain to people. You don't even want to explain to people. It's like asking a writer to read with expression what they wrote, right? That you need actors for that. So an art curator should be able to take out from an art piece the meaning and present it to the world. You should be able not to abandon the artist along his path through this crazy artwork system. Should be able to give advice, to present it to other people, to to curate their choices and to get contacts for them. I think that the main thing is that once that you start a path with these artists, you shouldn't abandon them, and you should be able to have a wide vision and pick up what's going on around you to see if there are new artists and new art trends and what's happening, and not to have this one or two few puppies that you will take with you for the rest of your life just because it's very productive and it brings money to you. So what's actually happening a lot of times with art curators is that you cannot have an art show if you don't have an art curator. So these people are just called to, sometimes they even just put their name there just to have an art curator in the show. And so many of them just take care and don't even get to know the artist, just take care of specific projects, and then that's it. So they don't really accompany the artist on this trip into the art world. So I think the art curator role is essential to translate art from artists to everybody.
That word that you use, translate, when I was listening to your explanation of what an art curator is, I was immediately thinking about translators of written work. The best examples of a successful translation happens when the translator sticks with that writer book after book, work after work, because they get to know them so intimately. And oftentimes that translator tends to be their spokesperson in whatever language that they're translating their work into. So it's very interesting to see the parallels between literary translators and art curators. It's very, very interesting. And well, I have a million questions for you personally, but obviously the focus of this show is going to be on Hackatao. So I think it would be a great time to get into the first question that I have prepared for Hackatao. I'm very curious to hear from your perspective and how Hackatao thinks about themselves. Who is Hackatao?
So Hackatao is an artist duo. They're from Italy. It's a couple in life and in the artistic sense. The name recalls their way to make art. So you have hack for the pleasure of going under the skin to discover what's hidden. So as a hacker, and to show it to everyone through their art. So it's like the pure hacker spirit. And then you have the Tao part, because they are like yin and yang. And so these represent their creative, dynamic balance. So yes, they are very different and very complementary. I know in real life and in their art. And if you have a look at their artworks, you will understand very clear and like in 1 second that you have two components in there that came to be combined.
When I first found out that it was a artist duo, I was like, oh my God, well, it makes perfect sense, because you can see those two very, very distinct but complementary styles that you alluded to. One is being hyper detailed, and then one is bringing that very attractive, very appealing flat style. So the next question I have is, well, I mean, obviously we know their distinct styles, but how, beyond the style that they like to employ, how are both of these artists represented or reflected in their works? And feel free to use like an example out of their corpus that you think best represents their unique identities as artists.
Of course. So Hackatao's art perfectly reflects what they are. Two different characters, although together in this balance that we were talking about. So they're different and complementary, and as we said, it's very visible. So in the first phase of the creation of an art piece, they decide the theme together and the idea of the artwork. And which is, they said it's probably the most intense moment of the whole creation process. And then when they translate their idea into canvas, it's when their roles get divided. So Sergio is the one taking care of the drawings. It's like a tattoo on the canvas. It's very detailed and it reflects his personality. And Nadia defines the borders. She contains him. So they were speaking about this, and it's very interesting because Sergio will say that without the borders that she gives him, he will get lost because it will go into many details. It's like, I need a cage. So with her flat style, with her painting, she gives him the cage that he needs. Like an example could be the podmark, which is this little creature. It's a sculpture, and it's how their collaboration started. So you can see like this little creature, very colorful, but also with these very detailed pieces. Nadia really shaped and gave a gaze to the whole thing, and then Sergio will go inside and like write words about like inspired from the theme that they chose. Podmore could be an example, but actually anything you see from them is a perfect example. I could talk about canvas, piece on paper, Podmark. It's very clear, always the same style, very defined. Also, like art reflects their curiosity towards the world. You can see that they really want to discover it and understand it, and then they think that their mission is to give back to the world what they think, like their thoughts. So they are inspired from the world, and then they give back something. And also I had a conversation with them about this as like really the role of the artist, like take things from the world through their own filters, but then give it back to it, like producing this flow, like continuous flow. And also their art has different levels of interpretation. So it either could be read by a child who maybe would immediately capture the colors, or by a grown-up who, maybe wants to go in the depth of its meaning.
I've noticed all of those elements through their work since I came across them. And it's great to see that I've seen exactly what they've wanted the viewer to see. That's fantastic. And well, the next question I have is about their distinctive Hackataoian styles. I'm wondering, in the case of Hackatao, did the artist still always have these sorts of very defined styles, the one being very detailed and tattoo, like the other being flat, colorful, and playful? Or are these styles that the two have evolved into over time?
Both. So obviously both of them already had their own style, which is very similar to what you see here. But then this is the perfect combination. So, and when you combine something, of course, you will have to change something. So let's say that their path was born for fun. Like they met and they found themselves together and just because they wanted to like experiment and realize ideas. But they come from very different like backgrounds. So for instance, Nadia, and you can see that these backgrounds are very much reflected in what they do. So Nadia studied graphic design at the Institute of Art. And Sergio comes with a more troubled past. For instance, he was talking about his childhood when he used to draw a lot, and for him, drawing was like was a way to find peace, and it was also a big help since his childhood was marked by grief in the family. And then he was talking about how his own style evolved during his adolescence. He stopped drawing completely because he said that the computer distracted him from his manual design, and he moved to digital and writing, and he started to work in Milan as a copywriter. And then something happened. So when he was 25, he had a surgery with general anesthesia, and he said that it was like someone pressed the reset button. So when he woke up after the convalescence, he started to draw again. And like because he really wanted to. And after a few weeks, he defined his own style. And so at the beginning, it was mixing drawings on paper to digital photography. So you can see that it changed when he met Nadia, but really like the detailed and drawings of like introspection and depth stay there. And as I was mentioning earlier, when they met, these Podmore sculptures were born. So how did she contribute to these little sculptures that she fell in love with? She gave them like guys. So she repainted them, and then everything started. Then they said that the sculptures were very small, so they had this need of moving to something else, and they moved to canvas. And then they started to make experiments and to, like through digital re-elaboration of the photo of the Podmark. So it took a while for them to get where they are. But in the end, it was like Nadia came with this very defined flat style, and now she was missing a part, which was the detail part, and Sergio just put it there. And then they trying to combine these things, and what came out of this was the first three art pieces, which is the Podmore skulls, which Hackatao consider to be the block zero. And from there, they started their adventure. What I would like to say about this is that in my interview to them, I asked them, aren't you, because, when you have a very defined and clear style, as you were saying, like you see this art piece and you will be like, okay, this is Hackatao. I was asking them if they've ever been through that they ever experienced the danger of being repetitive, because it's not easy to keep the same style without stop creating or become stagnant. And they confirmed that it's absolutely not possible. First of all, because it's very it's not like it's like to paint on the right and on the left. It's just like to reproduce something, but every time they make an art piece, it's about a different theme. But especially, and it's that every time they experience and experiment with something new. So there was an evolution in the style even when they moved to where they live now. So you should know that Hackatao, they met in Milan, and they were living there for many years. And that at a certain point, when they had kids, they started thinking that Milan wasn't a good place to be anymore. So they moved to north of Italy. They basically live on the mountains. It's a very small place on the mountains. And so living closely with nature also influenced changes in their styles, like in the colors, for instance, making them much more cheerful and lively and stronger, being in contact with nature. Also, they introduced the black inks, while like earlier the borders were more monolevel and pale, and now they're more defined. So they keep evolving. They said that to get to this point, this variation in style required like months of research and experimentation, because they had to find the right chemical that would avoid conflicts between the different materials. So, and for instance, like I have been curating few art pieces by Hackatao, and so a few days ago, this piece called "Happy End" came out. We have a text on Sent that I wrote, and so for instance, this was the first time ever that Hackatao used VR. So as you see, there is a constant using new tools and experimenting in their own very specific style, which I love, because these people can use many new tools and like experiment with many new things, but they are very successful in keeping what, we say, okay, this is a Hackatao. So this, for instance, this Happy End art piece, first of all, it's very interesting because it came out at a very specific time, which is what we are all living right now, the quarantine due to the spread of COVID-19. So Hackatao asked people to suggest words, either negative or positive, because there is a transition in the piece. We start with a negative feeling, and then this little creator just shakes it out, and it becomes, it comes out of it, and everything goes back to positive feelings. And so Hackatao are also interacting with the audience. People suggested words and feelings to put inside the piece. As I said, they used the VR painting for the first time. They used this steel brush, and they try to use it to the extreme, it's like someone very purist about VR would die if they see this, but they did it on purpose, and it was just like kind of apotheosis colors and glitters. Why? Also because they want to recall the feeling of like a child. It's like the creation of a child. So yes, it's still very, you see that the Happy End creator is drawn by Sergio, so same style, very detailed and deep, but then all around you have all these colors and feelings that go through from negative to positive. And also, I don't know if you have seen yesterday, a collaboration with Cody came out. Yeah, which is called WAP, You Unidentified Art Phenomenon. So they also experimented with the collaboration with another artist, and they were saying, they were talking about how when an artist or when artists work together with other artists, they're not the same anymore. They're different because this exchange modifies you. So this was another experimentation that they went through. So a very specific and original style, but that keeps growing, which I think it's the key it's the key for an artist, because if you're not able to grow with what you're doing, you can be an artist involved with social issues, but at a certain point you will have to evolve with society. Otherwise you're not a social artist anymore. So they're very able to do this. It's like they keep their identity, but they're always updated. It's always the most contemporary art, the one of Hackatao.
That is so fascinating, and very, 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 again, thorough and detailed explanation. But now pulling back a little bit away from the actual creations of Hackatao and acknowledging the fact that Hackatao is amongst the top 3 all-time crypto artists in this very early nascent space, but also acknowledging the fact that they, as you mentioned earlier too, that they have a very significant physical presence with their work, either in prints or canvas or sculptures. So I'm very curious, how does Hackatao think about their digital versus physical art? Do they treat them as very distinct things? Are they just different expressions of what they want to convey and interpret to their audience?
Yeah, so I personally think that Hackatao are the perfect artists of this time. I believe that we are in a transition time. You can call it transition time or combination time. I don't know. I don't even know if we will ever be able to abandon the physical dimension. Honestly, I don't think so. I wasn't thinking so. And after what happened, and what's happening with COVID, I don't think that we will ever be able as human beings, and so based on our nature, to abandon the physical part. And you can see this through Hackatao. So Hackatao has the legitimation that the art world gives them because these people are producing in physical. So they respond to the standards that the contemporary art world is asking, because like crypto art, like digital art is not there yet. But then they have this capacity of not stopping, of like giving themselves possibilities of experimenting. I actually had a nice conversation like a month ago with Ai Weiwei about this, who was complaining. Like, it was like, why do you even call it like digital art? Art is art. You're already limiting yourself. It's like, why? Because like, for instance, Weiwei just made this art piece in VR. It doesn't call it digital art. It makes art. You didn't even think about the term, right, of like calling it digital art. And so Hackatao also does this. They do art. So they started with physical, and then they started to transition. I mean, not to transition, to also have a digital component. So like to animate their own art pieces, put them on the computer using programs to animate them and create GIFs. Other than starting to use AR, there are beautiful paintings. So on Canvas, where you can scan with an app, and then you also have your digital piece in AR. And this is amazing. And so their attitude towards art, I think that it's the right one. It's art. They paint, they draw, they make GIFs, they use VR, they paint on the computer, they use anything they are curious to use, and anything they think that can express their art in their moment. So I don't see borders, and I love this. It's really like the perfect artist representation of our time. I think that this is how it should be. It's like a mix, just because we are still forced to talk about it, because to me it's art. So I'm even not thinking about like, it's integrated with a GIF or anything. It's art. They use anything they wish to.
I totally support that. And just thinking about the different experiments or expressions as just, well, they decided to use different tools today, but regardless, it all falls under the moniker of art. I've seen that sentiment growing, and especially for this nascent space that has just started up, this new way to kind of express and stamp ownership on the creation using these digital tools, that will continue to further legitimize this space as a valid avenue for art. But sort of on a related note, I know a couple months back at the beginning of 2020, there was, and there has been since then, a pretty contentious back and forth argument about what copyright means, especially for artists. There's one segment of artists that are saying that if you are making a digital work and you're putting it out there, especially on the blockchain, it's there for other people to kind of do what they will with it. Obviously, Hackatao does not take that side, and they made their position very clear that they want to protect their IP. They value that very, very highly, and they're very protective of that, which is obviously understandable. I'm just wondering if you're able to kind of enunciate where Hackatao sees their copyright from their position in a more detailed way, and if there's any kind of distinctions that they've started to draw when it comes to working in the digital realm when it comes to copyright.
Yes. So no, there is not distinction that they find. Like when it comes to digital art, they have the same idea about any kind of art. And yes, this is really like the issue of our time in art, since it's becoming digital. It's like, yeah, intellectual property, yes or not. Hackatao's thoughts about this issue are pretty strict and simple. I think that there are some rules that protect artists, creators, and anyone else. And if someone does business using their art and their creations, they're doing something illegal. Just very simple. And they think that if anyone has a project and they want to include their art, they can just discuss about it. They really told me like kindness first. Like, why cannot you call me and we discuss about this if you wish to use what I created in your project? And copyright exists to protect. And, like an artist can get inspirations from others, of course, but then in the end, the artwork needs to be your own creation. They also talked about an experience that they actually had here in Italy. So it happened that a fashion brand used a Podmark image to, print it on their clothes. And so they went through this with a lawyer and they obviously won. It was like their Podmark was everywhere on clothes. And the only thing that they really wanted to clarify was like, you just had to give me a call and tell me, can I use the Podmark on my, brand for this season, and everything would be fine. So it's also like a matter of respect and and kindness. And they also talked about many other times that they use, their art for projects that they got paid for. It's like these comics diaries. They designed the covers, and it was like a regular project. They were contacted by the project managers and they got paid for it. So very, very simple idea about copyright.
And that respect and kindness element, that's something that I hadn't seen, I guess, expressed by Hackatao, especially in the heat of the moment when the conversation kind of erupted. But that's it, right? In a nutshell. I think that's kind of a beautiful encapsulation.
Yeah, it's common sense, right? Like many times, like we keep talking about roles and now how it should be, and all this, articles and papers about copyright. It's like, it's common sense. Can you give me a call? So maybe I will tell you yes.
Exactly. And then, well, one of the interesting aspects that I've seen, I know it's hard to draw distinctions between what's art and what's not, but in the space that is self-identifying as crypto art, there is a beautiful trend when everything started, when there weren't a lot of collectors, for the artists who are participating on platforms like Super Rare and Known Origin to collect other works from other artists. So you have the artists being collectors and collectors being artists, which is, I think, kind of a very, very distinct and beautiful aspect of what's emerging over here. I'm curious if we were to open up Hackatao's digital wallet, or even look in their personal collection for physical art, who are they collecting? Who do they see as being just amazing and doing amazing work?
Yeah, so first of all, they talked about a very interesting aspect. They said that when crypto art started, there was the buzz of collecting it and like this euphoria, they were collecting art pieces from these other artists, but it was also because the community was very small and it was basically accessible. Because then they said that when big collectors came in, these art pieces are not very accessible for artists anymore. It's like it started to be more defined as a more traditional kind of situation. So they said, at the beginning we were collecting, we were buying, but now since their job in life is to make art, it's not really sustainable to buy art pieces. It's like if you're an artist, you're not a collector. It's very different. So it's interesting how like they said that they keep like to give treats to themselves. So sometimes they would collect, but it was more consistent at the beginning, where it was more like this kind of community. Anyways, they like to collect things that are very much different from what they do. So their art is very colorful and very much pop, while they like to collect skulls or things which are more macabre and grim, and like they're very interested in things that are different from them. They have X copy in their collection, Hexi Prometheus, who is an Italian artist, and then they talked about Brandon Walsh, who was this homeless artist they found very interesting. They were really counting on him, but then he disappeared. And Sergio said there was this art piece about Santa Claus that he collected because he said that when he was a kid, for the reasons that I was mentioning earlier, it wasn't very like it wasn't taking Christmases very well. It wasn't living this with too much happiness, and so he found things inside this art piece. And also Ilan cutting roses. They have a daughter beef. They talk about Tinder, who's also another artist who disappeared, probably because maybe he didn't believe too much in what he was doing. And this leads me to talk about something else, or Officina Speak Up. They have interesting skulls. What we took out of this conversation about what they are collecting is also that like many people who started didn't continue to be in the community. It could be artists, it could be collectors, and Hackatao is very firm about this. They started, they kept going, they never abandoned, they believed in it, and now they are repaid for this. Like they're talking about many artists they were even believing in as the few that we just mentioned, and then they disappeared. So they weren't consistent. As well as for collectors, it's like, people who want to invest some money, they invested some money and then they disappeared. So they care very much about the continuity of the community, and I agree with this.
Yeah, it's that community element that was, it really set everything in motion. It's been really interesting to see, as Hackatao mentioned, we are starting to see this very distinct demarcation with more, I guess, collectors who are more akin to the traditional art collectors, and how that's beginning to change some of the dynamic. But still, at the very core of everything is that beating heart of the community that you can see, if not in the actual collecting of art, in the kind of ancillary, like surrounding initiatives, like in CryptoVoxels, where we have other artists who are setting up the crypto art campus to spur on education in digital work and stuff.
Yeah, we're working on this project with Hackatao. So we have ETH Turin here in Italy. Very soon. It was supposed to happen in Turin, but physically, but it's going to happen like virtually. And so Sergio from Hackatao is designing a space in CryptoVoxels, and I will curate the show. So we will present like a selection of Italian crypto artists, which will be, it's just for the community and as educative project. We don't get anything from it. We just do it for the knowledge and for the community, as I was saying. So he's an artist, but he will design this gallery for other artists, as you were saying. And we'll present like the current situation of crypto art in Italy. So yes, it's true that the spirit of community is very strong in crypto art. Like I had the pleasure to get to know all the crypto, the creative community in New York It's really, they always make fun of me because I always call it, it's like Christmas. It's really like a small families. It's, it's always us, the same people helping each other without looking too much at the systems. But from my point of view, when I see like, this is very unique and amazing that you really have like a family, this crypto community. But then when I see that there are more traditional collectors and artists are not able to collect anymore, to me, it's a positive sign. It is a positive sign because it means that it's happening. Because the pieces should be collected by collectors. It means that the economy of like crypto artwork starts running. So I think that we should be happy about this instead of like have like melancholy feelings. That it's growing.
100% with you. And that's fascinating to hear what's going to happen with ETH Turin. And as an aside, I know you mentioned Hex 6C earlier. I know he's been a figure that has, especially with the data and the academic analysis of the space, I've been a huge fan of his analysis of the space. It's helped, I think, legitimize the space and give me a language to kind of use when I'm describing this to the folks that are maybe less familiar with it. So I'm very excited to see what you, Hackatao, and the rest of the Italian crypto artists are able to put together. Shout out to everyone involved there. It's amazing. Well, heading into the last question, veering away from Hackatao now and going back to yourself, we started out with the initial question of what have art curators traditionally done? But now I'm very curious to hear from your perspective as we're heading into a future where a lot of the tools are going to be more digital. A lot of the art itself is going to be digital. I'm curious, as an art curator that's straddling both worlds today, where do you see the role of the art curator heading in a more digital, more blockchain-based future?
Yeah, so if the role of art curators was and is important right now, it will be even more important later and for crypto art and digital art. Why? Because people need to be educated about this, because this is a new trend, it's a new aesthetic, it's a new way of collecting, a new way for the collector of experiencing an art piece, which is not a sculpture, so maybe you cannot touch it. You can maybe hear it or see it or even not see it, just have it on your computer. So we do need curators. I have been telling this to the crypto art community since for like day one, and curators need to tell stories. They need to present these artists and the art they make to the world. And I firmly believe that in order to do this, we still need to use a language that the pre-existing artwork can understand. Otherwise, it's like going to like an Italian person and speaking to them in, like Arabic language or any other language that they don't understand. So it doesn't work. So we need to bridge the situation. Curators should be able to be not extreme. So it's like, I think that extremes never work. So you cannot stay on your nerd land, like on the blockchain and on the computer, and you cannot just stay in this old, almost dead systems like art galleries are, which are like this even family-run companies sometimes. It's like you can even not work in an art gallery if you're not the son of the art gallerist. So we need to bridge these two realities, and in order to do that, in the middle, you have an art curator. I know that blockchainers, who I love, because I'm a big supporter of the blockchain. I find it to be very romantic. I know that they hate the third man, not banks, not galleries, but please, yes, curators, because otherwise this bridge will never be traced. So get to know, first of all, it's talent scouting. Once that you found talents, how would you present these artists who are there in like like this digital space. So they're not on earth. As I always say, like, how do you present them to the art world in order that they understand that this is important? This is the most contemporary art we have. The art that digital artists are doing speaks the language of its time, which is basically the role of art. How do you do that? Maybe you have to use some old means. Maybe you can print a book. Maybe you can write stories about them. Maybe we have to organize art exhibitions, which is what I'm doing in physical spaces, so that you trick people who come and, they feel comfortable in a space that they understand. Like, I'm organizing this digital art show in Rome. And since it's in Rome, I thought that where else could it be if not a secret space? So people come, they understand where they are. It's a language that they understand. It's the translation we were talking about earlier. So they're open, they feel comfortable, and they're open to new things because people want to see and experience new things, but you have to let them understand. Otherwise, if we speak different languages, we will never understand each other. And then you present this new aesthetic, and you tell the story about this artist who so many times want to stay anonymous, but it doesn't matter. So I'm not going to tell your name, but I'm going to tell your story. I'm going to explain your piece. And to explain the piece doesn't necessarily mean that you have to talk about the fact that you use code, what is code, and that you use tilt brush, what is tilt brush. No, that's good because it's new tools, so people still, they need to be educated. But like these art pieces, we often forget that they have a meaning. Because what I think that the biggest problem with digital art, and this also comes a little bit from the digital art community, is that everyone is so much focused on the, on the production, but like on how you make the art piece, so on the tools. The tools are not the art. A painting, you don't present the brushes when you present a paint. So we should treat digital art as, traditional, if we want, so call it, art is presented. At that point, when it will be legitimized and everyone will think, okay, this is valuable, not only in terms of money, the blockchain does that. This is valuable, like it has value to me for its aesthetic and its meaning, then you can treat it however you want. But I think that what curators should do now, talent scouting, follow these people, do not abandon them, and present them in a way that the art world can understand.
That was so fabulously well put, Eleonora.
I'm very verbal about this.
that was impressive and impactful, and you've definitely given me a lot of food for thought in how I discuss and frame and try to highlight the artists that I love and that I think a lot of other people will love. It's all about the language that you use and how you translate the work for other people to understand. It's perfect. Before we wrap up, I know that you had alluded to the now virtual event that ETH Turin will be. I'm just wondering if there's any websites or any social network handles that you want to shout out on behalf of Hackatao for where people should look for events that they'll be associated with.
So to see Hackatao art pieces, they are on super rare, async, and known origin. For you can just contact them there or just on Twitter, but that's where you will find their pieces, digital pieces. And for the Crypto Voxels show that we are organizing, I don't have the link yet. It's all on process, but we will let you know soon. Maybe we'll write an article on Cent.
That would be perfect. Well, Eleonora, it was an honor and a pleasure to be able to get to speak with you.
It was my pleasure.
Hackatao is very lucky to have an ambassador such as yourself embody, exemplify, and express their work so beautifully and so eloquently. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks to you. You have a nice day.
You too. Hey everybody, it's Matthew again, and I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Eleonora about the artist duo Hackatao. as much as I did recording it. As always, make sure that you're subscribed to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure that you recommend the show to anyone whom you think would enjoy it as much as you have. In the next few weeks, our spotlight pipeline is especially deep. We have shows with the digital artists Paola, the video artist and writer Sarah Zucker, aka the Sarah Art Show, and finally with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Connie Digital. So make sure you look out for those spotlights to drop in the coming weeks. And also on 4/20, April 20th, Scent has a very special unveiling of our new update. So we're really excited to have everyone get their hands on that. And with that, I hope everyone continues to stay safe, and I'll catch you on the flip side next week. Scent on.
Scent Podcast. Scent Podcast. Scent Podcast. Scent Podcast.